Welcome to the Land Your Bet Sports Betting Show. Swept the straights on Thursday Night Football last night. Just missed on those touchdowns and the ladder plays, but still up 1.45 units in the night. Also up 8.4 units on the season. So we'll look to keep it rolling. And let's see if we can't give $50 away to somebody. Tried this in the last couple of videos, but what I want you to do is like that video and then jump in the comments. Let me know who you think is going to be the first touchdown scorer for both the Cardinals and the Commanders in their matchup this week, which has the highest total of any game. So we should be able to get some tutties out of that one. I'll throw you in the raffle, get the $50 out to one of the lucky winners. For now, let's jump into 6 player prop projections that I have here for week 4. I think we have one more week at least of Carson Steele overs that we can take here. I'm definitely going to be leaning into the starting RB for KC here in week 4. Maybe a TD. Love the rushing yards as well. But we have one more week, I think, before Kareem Hunt, who was activated on the Kansas City roster this week. He'll be out there probably a little bit in this game, but I still don't think enough to eat into this low total that we have for Carson's rushing yards. You look at last week, 17 rushing attempts, 4.2 yards per carry in week 3. So if you think he's going to maintain a really high yards per carry and at least above average, then I think you have to just project how many rushing attempts he's going to have and go from there. So I think he'll still have some of the same success, and I think he'll still be at 12 plus in this game, which does get you to 48 yards according to the yards per carry, right? The thing about the Chargers defense that I really wanted to get into, this is a massive fade of their currently very highly ranked rush defense, which is both third in rushing defense EPA and rushing defense success rate. That said, who have they played in their first 3 games? Steelers, 25th rushing offense. Panthers, 28th rushing offense. And the Raiders, 32nd dead F last in this NFL in terms of their rushing offense. So before we just want to crown the Chargers a top 5 rushing defense, we should probably see them against a legitimate rushing offense. And that's what this Chiefs team has become. They've really sort of leaned a lot more into the run and their defense, carrying them to regular season wins, and then Pat Mahomes doing random Pat Mahomes things throughout the game to give them that edge, right? And that's worked, obviously, to the tune of 2 straight Super Bowls. Just because Pacheco's out doesn't mean that they're just going to run away from it when this roster is built on that, and then the ability to get the ball into the hands of playmakers like Worthy and obviously Rashee Rice. So with that in mind, I think Steele is going to continue to get the touches in this one and be their lead back in between the 20s and inside the goal line. So the touchdowns are a pretty good look if you consider 7 rushing red zone attempts for the Chiefs last week. 6 of those went to Carson Steele. So Kareem Hunt is the guy that would come in and vulture those from him. I think we have another week of that. Let's get the good plus money on the tutty and a little bit over on the rushing yards for Steele. Rushing yards for another rookie, looking at quarterback Bo Nix. Quick reminder though, these are all the leans that I have for NFL week 4 on Sunday. If you do want the final plays and the parlays that I'm putting up as well, you want to make sure that you jump into the description of this video. Check out the link to the VIP. Got some discounts in there for you guys, 25% off, and some giveaways that we're doing for members. So jump in, you can take the 7-day free trial if you want, and check it out. But let's talk about Bo Nix rushing, because he's playing the Jets D. It's a very low passing total that he's gone over the last 2 weeks for sure. It's at about 185.5 on most books. Still kind of scares me against the Jets pass defense, which has been much better than its rushing defense so far this season. And its rushing defense versus quarterbacks is pretty average, but they haven't played any rushing quarterbacks yet. Will Levis, Jacoby Brissett, and Brock Purdy. Those are the 3 quarterbacks that the Jets have played. Not very many rushing yards allowed to them, but none of them really want to run. Bo Nix is a rusher. He actually has 8 designed run plays for him this season and 10 scrambles, which is 3rd most in the NFL. A major reason for those scrambles would be how bad the pass blocking is from this Denver offensive line. They rank 2nd to last in pass blocker rating. Obviously, that's going to be a problem against the Jets, who have the 2nd most sacks in the league after tearing it up last week, and now have the 8th highest pressure percentage on quarterbacks as well. So Bo Nix is going to be forced out of that pocket. You can believe that. And he's shown the willingness to run for sure, taking off with those 10 scrambles, but we might even see some of the RPO stuff and that will get him to neutralize that defensive line for the Jets. So those design run plays for him are also going to be really helpful to get us there. I think he only needs about 5 rushing attempts to get there in this one. I mean, he's averaging 6 yards per carry at this point with more. He's got 19 through 3 games. So 6 rushing attempts. I think we're in a good place here. You might even take the rushing attempts over at 5.5, in part because they can't throw. And that's the final point here, is everything also is just really hindered by the fact that the receiving core for this Broncos team really bad. Cortland Sutton, Josh Reynolds. In fact, their best wide receiver, I would make the case at this point, is Lil Jordan Humphrey, who, if you haven't heard of him yet, get used to that name because he's 28th in the NFL in separation per target. If you look at Reynolds and Sutton, who've been their first two options for most of this season so far, those dudes rank in the bottom, like bad. They're just bad. 84th for Reynolds and 87th in terms of separation percentage there for Sutton. So they're both looking really, really bad. Lil Jordan Humphrey, not enough props for him, but I think either way, the passing is going to be depleted for Broncos. You go for the rushing for the quarterback in this one. Chalky chalk, but we got to go with the rook, Marv Harrison Jr. I think he's good for a tutty in this one, and I definitely like the yards. Probably a ladder play in there as well on the yardage because he's coming in, he's playing the Commanders, and they are terrible. Dead last in defensive EPA, and they are going to be going up against a dude who is sort of the archetype of the guys that have torched them so far this season. You look at the number one wide receivers, Chris Godwin went off, Rashad White went off, Mike Evans went off. Other two guys included the other rook, Malik Neighbors, who's probably challenging him right now for Offensive Rookie of the Year. And then Jamar Chase had his coming out party for the season with his big game as well. All those dudes got their receptions. All of them got 100 yards. All of them got a touchdown as well. So I think we are going to feel pretty good about the use case here supporting us. And then Marv's usage in this offense. One, Trey McBride is out. That's the second target for this Cardinals team, no question. It's 1A and 1B in whichever order you honestly want to put Marv and Trey McBride in there. But without him out, and the fact that he had 11 targets last week bodes pretty well. And this is going to be a much easier contest than last week against the Lions, who have a much better pass defense and pass rush than this Commanders squad. So with this total as high as it is, with Marv as the number one option, as chalky as it is, we're going to take overs for him this week. Moving on to Bears and Rams. I don't think I'll be watching that game this week, but I think we got to fade Kyren Williams. And I really wanted to initially take a look at receiving yards and such, but I don't even know if we have the opportunity to do that in this game, because what this game is going to come down to more than anything to me is how do the Rams offense fare against this incredible defense of the Bears this season, which is fourth in the NFL in terms of total defensive EPA, whether it's a pass play or a run play. Got the third best pass defense in the league and one of the best pass rushes in the league. In fact, the most impressive thing about this team is that they get the fifth highest pressure percentage on the quarterback, and they blitz the fourth fewest amount of times in the league. So they're barely sending extra guys, and they're still pressuring the quarterback with a top 5 rate. That's pretty impressive. What else that allows you to do is leave your linebackers open to not have to get engaged with offensive linemen rather, and now they're open to just go and tackle the runner or cover the running back in coverage, right, in pass coverage. So even when Kyren is going to get some of these designed pass plays, or at the very least just sort of be that last outlet option, the linebacking core for the Bears is so free to do what it wants with how well that defensive line is dominating. Plus, you've got the maybe the best defensive backfield in the league at this point. I think you have to start to expect that. They get off the field at the highest rate in terms of on third down, so they have the best defensive third down percentage. And this Rams team is just in a bad spot to be coming in winning this game or really competing that much in this game and keeping its drives alive because its offensive line is donezo, right? They're starting 3 dudes that have never played in the NFL before this year. The right side is a lot better than the left, I'll say that. But if you even try to run on the left side of this line, they're going to get eaten up with their rooks that are in there that should be probably some third stringers starting on the left side right now for them. So everything's looking like maybe the Bears can hang in this game. It's almost like a stinky bet, to be honest with you. Why are the Bears -3 against a team that has shown they can't do anything? Now, they're coming off a win, the Rams are, but I would look at more closely at that. 3 key injuries on defense for the 49ers in this last game versus the Rams. Huge reason why Kyren was able to do what he did. You look at the first quarter of that game against the 49ers, Kyren had 2.5 yards per carry. You look at after the injuries for the rest of the game, goes up to 4.3 yards per carry. This team for the Bears is not at all hurt. They should be limiting Kyren Williams stuff this week. Congratulations to Deontay Johnson and the rest of the Carolina Panthers offense. They are free from the tyranny that was Bryce Young's quarterback play. Ding dong, Bryce Young is on the bench, not dead. But now that we've got him on the bench and we've got the red rifle, Andy Dalton out there slanging that thing, total gunslinger. Let's not forget the revenge narrative for Andy Dalton playing against his Bengals squad. He basically has the opportunity to end the Bengals season, putting them at 0-4 if he can win. I expect him to come ready to play. Now his favorite target is going to be Deontay Johnson. I think you just take everything. Whatever it is for Deontay Johnson, I'm going over. 14 targets last week. That was the 8th highest target share of anybody in the league last week. 8 receptions on those targets, 122 yards. So you know that he's going to be the center of attention. This Bengals defense, while it's been worse against the rush, is still very bad against the pass, and is a bottom 5 defense in terms of total EPA. So you could probably get some Chuba Hubbard stuff in here, but I love Deontay because Adam Thielen is out. So it's just going to be more targets for him. I mean, you can't get much better than 14, but this would be the week to do more than that, right? Since he, like I said, worst in rush EPA, but still 4th worst in passing EPA on defense there. So Deontay should have a good amount of targets here. We've also got a game script that's going to call for points from both sides. I still see this Bengals team able to score on this Panthers squad. We're going to have another week of T. Higgins back for the Bengals. Jamar Chase obviously got going, and Burrow finally opened things up and started throwing the ball further down the field than 9 yards. So now this Bengals offense is back to being for real. Its defense is still trash, and this Panthers squad is going to be a lot better on offense this week. So let's get Deontay Johnson to be a big hog in terms of target share and the yardage he's going to pull in. One more fade here that I'm leaning strongly is Garrett Wilson. And this is something that's been talked about because Pat Surtain Jr. has made a name for himself. Technically, his dad made the name Pat Surtain. I guess he's making the name Pat Surtain Jr., but the name Pat Surtain commands respect in the defensive back world of the NFL for a good reason. And that's a big reason why people have started to note maybe Garrett Wilson is good for an under this week. In fact, his yards opened at about 62.5 on some books and is all the way down to 55.5 on other books. So obviously shop this around to make sure you're getting the best number. But there's a couple reasons for fading Garrett Wilson this week, in addition to Pat Surtain's presence probably shadowing him all over the field, because I doubt that they're nearly as worried are the Broncos about Allen Lazard and even Mike Williams, who still needs a little bit of time. The 9-yard ADOT for Garrett Wilson is not good. Not good for a wide receiver one, not good in general. It's 59th among wide receivers in the league. And now you're talking about a Denver team that's locked up, right? And Pat Surtain's a big reason for that they're allowing the 2nd fewest yards per game to receiving yards rather, to receivers. And they have the 5th best drop pack EPA on defense. So they're not giving stuff up because they're getting pressure. 4th best in pressure rate, and then they have lockdown guys to really close out the play, right? The other thing here, I'll just start with also the Pat Surtain's record this year. It includes shutting down DK Metcalf, it includes shutting down Mike Evans, and it even shut down George Pickens, although I would say Pickens was a little bit more the result of his offensive line getting some bad penalties after he made some big receptions. But he has kept all 3 of those dudes to fewer than 29 yards receiving. Mighty impressive. And then you've got the fact that Garrett Wilson and A-Rod just still don't seem to be on the same page. He's not where he wants him. Obviously, A-Rod looks a lot more comfortable with Lazard. I'd probably go over on Lazard before I go over on Garrett Wilson, to be honest. But that's more of a stay away. It's mostly at this point about Garrett Wilson not being able to get that the large amount of yardage. Still only at about 6-7 targets per game. So it's not like if at the really low ADOT that you feel comfortable with him getting yards. That's where I'd lean on the under before I went to the receptions. Make sure you jump in those comments. Let me know who's going to be the first TD scorer for both the Cardinals and the Commanders in what should be a high-scoring game out there. Also, jump in the description of the video. All the tools I'm using, link to the free Discord and the VIP to make sure you don't miss a single one of my plays is up in there. So jump in there, grab those. Until I see y'all next. Happy betting.